and we're going to go live. We're going to have that awkward, like, in between, and then
Yes.
I'll intro us in.
Streaming to Facebook.
Oh, I had it all set up when I joined the call, and now it's
All
like,
right.
so give me,
Sometimes when we go live, we get that message, you do not have permissions to stream into this group. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's my group.
yep, that's exactly what just popped up. But it's usually when I've like, when I've hopped on the call and you like haven't joined yet, I'm like, I'll just get all this prepped, and it usually works. And then every once in a while it doesn't. Okay, we're gonna go try again, going live now.
Sure.
Hello and welcome to another incredible interview and Get Good at Business highlight within the Get Good at Business Facebook group. I am your host, Taylor Proctor, and I am so excited to be here today with Andrew Mellen, the most organized man in America. So excited to be able to chat with him today as we discuss the I Move, because as you know, I am the coach that's here to help you get good at business so you can get back into why you got into business in the first place. And we do all of that through the I Move method, which stands for intuition, marketing, operations, velocity, and execution. So today we're going to be discussing the I Move method and the areas of it with Andrew and how it pertains to him and his business. But he is the most organized man in America, and I'm so excited to be able to chat with him because he might be the world's best kept secret. From directing actors on stage to directing people in their lives, Andrew just might be, although his client roster, which includes American Express, the New York Mets, Metropolitan Museum of Arts, and Goldman Sachs, suggests he's hardly a secret at all. Speaking on such well-known stages as TEDx and South by Southwest, being named Wall Street Journal and Audible's best-selling author of Unstuff Your Life, The Most Organized Man's America's Guide to Moving, and calling bullshit on busy, Andrew attributes his wild success to straightforward, no BS, and fun approach. So, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. So much credibility behind your name here, and really excited to dive in and learn more about you.
Well, thanks, Taylor, for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Awesome. So let's start from when you think is the beginning, right? Whenever it feels right for you. But what actually drove you to become the world's most organized man or the most organized man in America? And was there what's the background behind that or your inspiration point?
Sure. Well, I mean, it fits perfectly with your topic because this was never a plan. I worked in the theater for 20 years, and in 1996, I was laid off from a theater I was running in Seattle, Washington. I came back east to co-produce an award ceremony at the Kennedy Center. One of our awardees was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I came to New York to get some photographs to put together a slide presentation when he got his award. And in the process of going through the photographs, they were a mess. Things were mislabeled, missing, things had been lent out, never returned. And in that process, I spent about 3 hours in their office. And as I was wrapping up, his wife invited me into their apartment. They had co-joining apartments. One was his office, one was where they lived. And she said, so what's your story? Who are you? Who are you? And I told her, I said, you know, I ran a theater in Seattle. I got laid off. I'm moving back to the East Coast. I had moved to Seattle from the East Coast. And so when that gig disappeared, my plan was always to move back east. She said, well, would you like to organize our photographs for us? I said, that would be a tremendous honor. I would love to do that. So we made a date for me to go to work. December 20th, 1996. The day before I was supposed to go to work, the phone rang, something unexpected has come up, they need to travel. Can we do it in January? We made a date for January. January rolls around, the day before I'm supposed to go to work, phone rings, something's come up, let's do it in February, make a date for February. February becomes March. In March, they say, when we're ready to proceed, we'll get back in touch with you. So I never actually go to work for them, but I tell every person I meet, I've got this amazing gig. I'm going to create a comprehensive photographic archive for a Nobel Peace Prize winner. That led to a friend of mine. I was doing some freelance copy editing work while I was looking for other theater administration work. She referred me to her accountant who needed a filing system. I built that for her. She started referring clients to me. People would literally show up on my doorstep with a duffel bag full of receipts saying, I haven't filed my taxes in 5 years. There's letters from the IRS in here. I'm freaked out. I don't want to go to jail. Can you make sense out of this before something really bad happens? So I would organize their papers. I'd put it in QuickBooks, give it to the accountant. The accountant would file their taxes and they'd say, oh my God, you're amazing. You saved my life. You're a genius. And they would tell all their friends, you'll never believe it. I gave this guy a pile of garbage. He turned it into my tax returns. He's amazing. And they would say, who is this guy? I need somebody just like that. And that's how this business began. And in that way, right? I mean, there was a very clear point when I said yes instead of saying no, right? All that good improv training as an actor, yes
Yes,
and. So the choice could have been like, oh no, I'm an artist. I have to make art. I can't solve problems in other ways. And instead, I just leaned into it and said, this work is coming. It's meaningful. It's really the same thing that was driving me in art, in making plays and doing things to prompt epiphany and transformation in the audience, was the same thing that I was doing as a professional organizer, trying to help people achieve clarity and set themselves free. The journey was one to many, to one to one, then back out to one to many. And so it's just, it was all about saying yes instead of saying no.
I absolutely love that for so many reasons, right? The yes and absolutely so good. But also like I think that so many entrepreneurs feel like organization can be stifling in some
Mm,
ways, and that structure is structure, and there's a realization that there is totally an art as well as the science to strong and good organization. And I love how you have that artistic creative background and have been able to apply that. That's chef's kiss. So
yeah.
good.
Yeah. And it is one of those, the average adult tells 200 lies a day. And that is one of many entrepreneurs, at least one of their 200 lies, right? Like the discipline, the structure, the systems are going to pen me in. They're going to kill my creativity and my spontaneity. And it's such baloney because it is the spring pad for all creation, right? I mean, you can have whatever feelings you want to have about Picasso as a human being. He was able to create cubism, another way of viewing and picturing things, because he was a master draftsman first. He understood the mechanics and the science and the math of art so that he could then say 2 dimensions is too limiting. I want to try to figure out how to create 3 dimensions in 2 dimensions. That is what's possible when you build off of structure. Structure doesn't limit you. Structure is the foundation for all creativity to spring forward in a way that is repeatable and sustainable. Anybody can be a genius once, but to be a genius repeatedly, and when we think about wanting to grow our practices and grow our businesses,
And be repeated.
it is not sustainable to rely on inspiration.
Yes, 100%. And I love that you bring this up too, because that's why operations is part of our I move, right? I know so many other coaches who focus on, okay, we're gonna get your sales, we're gonna get your marketing. And yeah, we talk about that, but you have to have the operations to support that growth. And just as you said, a strong foundation can free up your mind and your mental and emotional bandwidth to be creative and to be proactive instead of constantly in reactive state. I love it.
Totally. Yeah, you do all of the bandwidth that individual solopreneurs in particular are using up for all of that institutional memory and like how do we do this, which is not, to your point, right? It does not interfere with the inspiration and intuition that we also rely on. It isn't. The beautiful thing about technique is that once you've mastered it, you don't have to focus on it, right? But until you have mastered it, you have to like, well, so are there 5 steps? Are there 9 steps? what are the breadcrumbs to get me from here to there? And when you don't have to dedicate a certain amount of brain width to it, you can be all tuition in without having to worry or keep score or keep track of where you're at in your process.
Yes, so good. And I think you've touched very lightly on the intuition piece too, right? It frees up your opportunity to be in that intuitive state. So
Yes.
let's shift to the M of the I move method, which is marketing. So how do you approach marketing your services to individuals and businesses? And are there specific strategies or platforms that have proven most effective for you?
When it comes to marketing, so my business has a fork, right? There's the B2B and the B2C. We serve both audiences, right? The residential stuff, the unstuff your life, the clutter as the leading symptom is pretty much on the B2C side, unless a company or a conference is bringing me in around wellness and quality of life, in which case they do want to look at organization and personal systems and clutter in the hopes of improving quality of life, right? 360 kind of view of life. Otherwise, on the B2B side, most of that is calling bullshit on busy and time management and productivity. So we market in two different ways. When I'm teaching time management, I often talk to students, participants, audiences about the Pareto principle, right? The 80-20 rule. Particularly for me as a speaker and as a coach, but primarily when we think about it as a speaker and looking for those opportunities, the two things that move the needle the most for me on the B2B side are networking events and speaking gigs. It is unusual for me to speak publicly where that doesn't lead to 1, 2, 3, or 4 more speaking gigs. And it's the same thing at networking events. Me in person is the most persuasive way for me to engage other people in the messaging and the enthusiasm that I have for solving problems and efficiency, productivity, right? On the B2C side, certainly for our De-Stress Your Mess challenge, we do paid advertising. We drive traffic to two different funnels. We drive traffic. We have a free plus shipping funnel for Unstuff Your Life. And then we drive paid traffic towards the De-Stress Your Mess challenge registration. And that's on Facebook. Because that seems to be where the residential audience lives. LinkedIn as a social platform is where I drive more traffic and engagement for the B2B audience. And I get a lot of movement, but not a lot of conversion on Instagram. I've got almost 100,000 followers on Instagram, and they're lovely. They engage with the videos. They don't seem to be buyers, or I haven't cracked the code to convert them into buyers.
I love that though, because I think you really highlight, and I say this often to my clients, right? There's a million ways to make $1 million. And I love that you said, I go and I speak from stages and I network, and there's without a doubt, you in person is the thing that helps convert. And then the other is moving to more what we would consider, I'm going to say traditional, conventional, because it's still fairly new in the modern world, but right, conventional ads to challenge to those types of things. And I think that's so helpful for our audience to know that there are several different ways that you can market your company, and even you can have multiple prongs or spokes of your business that speak to different audiences.
Yeah.
That.
I would say also that from a productivity point of view, as well as a sanity point of view, right? If you're not getting juice, if you're not getting traction, no amount of blog posting or even the podcast converts as well as me speaking. Yeah. So I would spend so much more time, and I have my team hustling for speaking gigs more than all the other content creation, and I've been in lots of traditional media, right? I mean, I've been in every major publication from Time Magazine, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, HGTV. I mean, I had a column in Real Simple magazine for a while. All of these, it's all delicious and it's great to get. And none of it converts as much as the two things that I've identified. So when we're trying to decide where to invest my time, that's always where we lean into, is getting me on speaking events. And I'm a big INTJ. I'm a big introvert. So I hate going to, I love being on stages. I was an actor for 20 years, so I'm very comfortable on stages. I hate networking events. I would almost rather poke my eye out with a hot poker than have to go to a cocktail party and make small talk in the hopes of connecting with people. So I also for those events specifically, the goal for me is three meaningful conversations. Instead of feeling like I have to work the room, if I leave making three meaningful connections, I have permission to leave. I sometimes don't, but that's the benchmark for me to determine, like, that's all I have to do, and then I have permission to exit the room.
Love that. Now, you mentioned that your team is out there hustling to find these speaking gigs. So what operational practices or what operational support do you have, being the most organized man in America, right? Like, operations, we typically look at like organizations, standard operating procedures, things like that. But I want to talk more about your operational support and how you've utilized a team to help support your organization.
Yep. Well, we're all about the SOPs, and we create SOPs for everything. Anytime you solve a problem once, if it's likely to be a recurring problem, issue, process, it doesn't have to be a problem. It could just be a process that you will do more than once. Uh, the first thing I would recommend anybody to do is record those steps. And I will tell you that it is, I mean, certainly you can find lots of examples of operations manuals online. Get one, play with it, make it your own. I would always say err on the side of being overly specific rather than general. Often when I look through the ops that previous assistants and other people who have touched the ops manual have mapped out, it isn't something that somebody could follow who had no memory of how things are done. I, I would always rather, without being condescending or facetious, I would always rather be overly specific so that there's nothing left to interpretation. It's literally like following a recipe. And that is the benchmark or the example that anybody who's ever cooked can follow, right? I mean, if SOPs seem overwhelming or confusing or unnecessarily pedantic or fussy, just think about a recipe. The recipe doesn't say, grab a chicken embryo. It says grab an egg, right? It,
Right.
it says a pinch of salt. It says a tablespoon of this, a teaspoon of that, a half a cup of this. It's not grab some oil, grab a little bit of cumin, grab, you know,
Right.
a plant. It says grab basil. It says grab oregano. So you want to be that specific as well, so that if anybody's following that recipe, there's no question about this is the first step, then this, then this, then this. And if you follow that recipe, you will end up with a delicious cake. You won't end up with frittata, with frosting.
Awesome. I love that, and such a very relatable example. So let's talk about strategies that are adding velocity. So what strategies do you recommend or are you using to achieve quick and impactful results in your business?
Uh, well, I would say that the free plus shipping funnel has done really well for us, right? We've cracked that code. I mean, it helps to have had a Wall Street Journal best-selling book to build the funnel on,
Yeah.
but clearly, I mean, Russell Brunson, I mean, the person who, while he didn't invent the free plus shipping funnel, certainly has made it tremendously popular and visible and successful, right? So the idea of and he didn't have a New York Times best-selling book when he started his funnel. He just had a big platform, and he had an audience with ClickFunnels. So I would say that that is one of the ways that we have accelerated things. And the challenge likewise, I mean, when we came up with the challenge as a model for both traffic acquisition and conversion, that just became the structure that we wanted to then explode.
Yeah, so good. So what's the next big thing that you're focusing on executing?
There's three things that I'm currently working on. I am working on the second edition of Unstuff Your Life. So the book is now 14 years old, and it's time for its second edition. So I'm cooking that right now, and that should come out in August of this year. We've got our next De-Stress Your Mess challenge, which we're putting a spring cleaning spin on. So we've got a new spring cleaning playbook that's coming out, and we're working to jazz up the free assets and the OTOs, the one-time offers, when people are registering for the challenge, to make it sexy and new, because this is, I think, the 13th or the 14th challenge that we've run. So we want to spice it up while also not. I mean, I think that that's something that people do, particularly if you're a creative. You will innovate your way out of something that converts and works. Not that you're second guessing yourself, but because you can't leave well enough alone, right? The beautiful thing about scaling is, if you have something that is working, why don't you just pour gasoline on it instead of ripping it apart and building something new? It's not like you need to reinvent things always. You're just slowing yourself down from scaling.
Yeah.
Right. And the third thing that we're working on is a online course for calling bullshit on busy, because while I've taught 90-minute classes and I do a lot of training around the world really around that topic, we don't have a hybrid B2C, B2B version of that course that we could sell online. And so I'm talking with somebody now about developing that, because I feel like it gives us an opportunity to get that LinkedIn traffic that wants a class, the Udemy kind of, the 21st century version of the Learning Annex, all of those people, what used to be lynda.com, all of those people who are looking for online, quick and easy to consume courses, to put something into the market there that will allow us to open up that B2B market at a different level.
Yes, so freaking good. And I have to call out here too that, like, how amazing it is that you can be executing on something and focusing on something, and it can be pouring gasoline on it. And that's the challenge in the creativity, not refresh, restart, constantly spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
So good for entrepreneurs and business owners at all levels to have a great reminder of.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your challenge to conquer clutter. That is linked in our description. Tell us a little bit more about that, and why our audience should go check it out.
Sure. So it's a 5-day challenge. It's taught live, something that we discovered again, right? I have been teaching online since 2012, and I have sold more than a few online classes and programs. And what I discovered was, through a lot of trial and error, that my avatar is not, they're not going to do a DIY program, right? I mean, I could sell it to them because the value proposition is there, right? The features, the benefits, the outcomes, they'll get it, but they're disorganized, they're easily overwhelmed, they're easily distracted. So watching a series of videos by themselves, motivating themselves to do that, not going to happen. But if I'm live, they'll show up. And so I'd rather charge a little bit more money, because they want me in the room, and they're going to have to pay for me to be in the room, right? I mean, you could get something free that is a DIY product, then you have to bring all the juice as the student, as the participant. So we discovered that teaching live, our conversion rate is much higher, our engagement is much higher. And so it's a 5-day live challenge. Each night we cover a different clutter hotspot. We always talk about mindset. Mindset is key. Changing how you think about, feel about, and interact with stuff is key to any sort of sustainable success when it comes to decluttering and getting organized. And so every night, first night is papers and filing. I think the second night we deal with closing closets. Third night is kitchens. Fourth night is sentimental objects. Fifth night is those 3 secrets that you are probably doing, not meaning to make things more difficult for you, but are probably the 3 things that are preventing you from getting and staying organized. And those 5 nights make up the De-Stress Your Mess Challenge. And again, we typically have between 1,000 and 2,000 people signing up every time we do this. It's a lot of fun. It's live, so you got that juice of, and we've got a great turnout rate. We're typically at about 70% showing up. So there's anywhere between, 700 and 1,600 people online. So you can actually feel it and you can see it in the chat. It's a gas, and I love it and the team loves it. Everybody's really excited. And because of ops, right? It's easy. It is a well-oiled machine now. It's easy to be playful and fun because we're not like, what do we do next? We know we have a playbook. We know what we're doing next. You don't have to worry. You don't have to where are we at in the arc of the evening? I know exactly where we are. So it makes it again, coming full circle to our conversation, it's so much easier to be playful and have fun when you don't have to dedicate part of your brain to what's the structure? What's the structure? Where are we going next? So
yeah, love it. So that is unstuff.me/DYM. If you want to go check that out, is also in our description. Andrew, first off, thank you so much for sharing your talent, your expertise, and being so candid and open about what's working for you and your business, because that helps our audience and business owners see what they could apply to their own business. And of course, with an emphasis on operations and organizations, because that is so crucial to growing any business. And like you said, having fun and getting to be playful within business, which makes it so you don't burn out and you can be more sustainable. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And everyone who is watching, thank you for joining us today as well. If you are interested in learning about more of iMove methodology and how you can apply it to your business, we do have a monthly mastermind dedicated to teaching you and offering you trainings on the iMove method, as well as hot seat Q&A, co-working, and networking amongst the group. So if you're interested in checking that out, that link will be in the description as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to stay tuned as we will have more incredible business overviews with incredible owners like Andrew in the future. So stay tuned, and thanks for joining us.